Here we have a new copy of Splunk installed with the Machine Learning Toolkit and the supporting app for Python for scientific computing. Let's launch the Machine Learning Toolkit and explore some of the pre-populated use cases through the modeling assistance. When you start the Machine Learning Toolkit app, it takes you to the showcase first. One of the first features is the tour that will actually take you through the assets. While the tour will launch the first time you run the app, if you want to run it afterwards, you can just initiate it with the question mark button at the upper right-hand corner and actually go through the tour. We're going to go ahead and skip it. Here along the top, you also have access to our video tutorials for each of the different stories. Today I'm going to take you through one. The documentation for the most modern version of the application is available here and on our docs page. And finally, we have the assistance and the scheduled job drop-downs, which will actually be kind of a summary view that we're going to go over a little bit later. But first, let's go through what the showcase is really about. The showcase is organized around the modeling assistants. Each modeling assistant gives a guided machine learning experience, for instance, predicting numeric fields right here. And I'm going to go to the very first story, predicting server power consumption. But first, just one more thing about the assistants. You actually can see there's a paragraph following each one of the assistant links right here, which actually describes what the high-level use case is. And then we have the stories themselves populated below. So let's go to predicting server power consumption. So this is an assistant. It's a guided machine learning tour. At the top, we have some sort of Splunk search. In this case, it's just a CSV lookup, but that could be any Splunk search that you could possibly want to do. You can just plug it right in there. And down here at the bottom, after you've done your search, down here at the right below it, we have the ability to select different algorithms to solve the high-level problem, predicting numeric fields. Each one of these algorithms here predicts some sort of numeric field for every event that you've loaded into the search bar up here. You select the target for that algorithm, and you can select which fields in an interactive manner, right? Select which fields you want to have contribute to predicting that numeric field that's the target of the algorithm. And finally, you can split your data into training and test. And this is really about creating a model for the training set of data and validating it on the test set. 50-50 is just kind of the default value. Most of the data scientists I know try to do more like a 70-30. So you train your data on 70% of the data and then test it on 30%, the last 30% in this case. The different algorithms have a lot of other options. I'm not gonna go through all the options here, but you can see they show up here along the bottom. They're all in the documentation, right? But that's also going to be something that you need to go and actually research on your own, which is the correct algorithm to use for each of the different possible subcases of predicting. Our default linear regression works for all of our stories here, and it's a good starting algorithm. It's a good place to begin your journey. So after you've selected your algorithm, after you've selected your fields, etc., one of the options here is to save the model as a name. And this is important because this name is going to be used by the rest of your searches to apply that model in the future or to update that model in the future. And this field here creates a permanent lookup. Permanent until you actually delete it, right? Like everything in the world. Permanent lookup that you apply to the rest of your searches. And you can actually see some of the previous models that have been run on this machine. I've got the various settings and the model itself, as well as the ability to remove it from history. When the model was created, what was the original search query, what was the algorithm, what were my various settings that I may have set for that algorithm, and finally, what was the targeted field and what fields did I use to actually make that prediction. All these different values help you keep track of what models you have stored on your machine via the assistants. And you can delete them, you can add them, etc. as you see fit. Back in the create model workflow, we've got the ability to fit a model right now. That's going to go out and run an algorithm on the parameters that I've selected up here on the data, on these fields, etc. Or I can schedule the fit by clicking on this button right there. You'll notice that we have these tooltips. These tooltips should show up and guide you through whatever step you're considering at the time. And those tooltips are there to really give you a sense of what you're doing with the different fields. I suggest following them and looking at them. Finally, we have the ability, of course, to open anything in Splunk as a search, right? Because everything in Splunk is a search. And we can even show just the SPL in kind of a high-level view here very quickly. You can see we've got the search here at the top, and then the assistant has written the rest of the SPL, the rest of our search processing language, that's required to run that linear regression for you. And that's actually one of my favorite features about this assistant, actually really all the assistants, is that they write SPL for you after you've interacted with the algorithm in kind of an interactive way and you've made your selections. You know, it's really helping you get to a search that's going to bring you value quicker, right? As we continue down the page, we've got the sort of a preview of the data. You can see that the preview of the data has some of the fields we've come to know and love from the above selections, AC power, some of the features. But there's two new features here. There are two new fields here. There's the predicted AC power and the residual. The residual is the difference between the predicted value and the actual value for each event. And the predicted AC power is the output of that model being applied to this data right here, just as a continuous stream, right? So we can see that in Splunk as well. We can either open it as a search in another window. We can see the SPL right here. We've evaluated the residual I was mentioning before. Here's that apply part that I just mentioned. This is part of the language that we're extending and creating through the machine learning toolkit. We apply a model, right, as opposed to when we fit a model, fit an algorithm to create a model from a bunch of fields. And the assistant continues from here, actually showing you the various graphics or mod vizzes. We call them mod vizzes, but they're graphics to show you in an interactive way, how that model is doing. What is the what's the effect of that model through time, right, compared to the actual field that you're trying to predict? What's the scatter plot, or the individual points that you're trying to map to a single line going through all those points? That's definition of linear regression. What the residuals look like, what is the residual histogram, etc. And each one of these is a visualization that you can show the SPL for, right? Or you can actually open in a search, just like everything else in the assistant. It's there for your reuse in your own dashboards and your reports, etc. And one of the things I sort of jumped over here was the scheduling an alert, which actually brings up a nice way for you to set an alert directly in the machine learning toolkit as opposed to in another search. You can do it right here, and you can set the alert for whenever the predicted value is greater than or less than or what have you. And once you've created that alert, that will be running in the background looking for when that value is true, and you can go in and edit what that alert should do. Should it send an email? Should it do SMS text? Should it get your attention in another way? Just like any other alert in Splunk, it's a search in the background with a bunch of options. We've just made it available here in the machine learning toolkit. At the very bottom, we have sort of a summary of how that particular model is doing. We have the R-squared statistic, which is a good measure of fit. How good is our overall model at fitting all the data points in our selection, right? And again, everything here is available in SPL. You can open it up. Here are the coefficients for the various features that you've selected to feed into that model. And that's the assistant. It gives you this high-level ability to see the entire model, right, from its creation. You can fit it. You can then see it applied to your test data, see what it's going to look like out in the real world, and then you can take that model and use it in another search. You can click your open search here, and it's already reaching out and grabbing some new data. In this case, it's grabbing that CSV, and it's applying that named field, right, to all of your data. Here's the output of that model right there. So I'm going to go back to the showcase. I want to take a moment to describe what's going on here in the background. We've got Python for scientific computing, and we've wrapped some of the algorithms, 27 of the algorithms, for your use in this interactive command interface. This fit, this apply, these assistants with the drop-down. You can select these 27 algorithms. Depending on that use case, whether you're doing predicting categorical fields or clustering and numeric, the algorithms are listed here, and in some cases we haven't listed all of them. They're available on the docs page. You can wrap any algorithm that's out there in scikit-learn, SciPy. You can wrap your own algorithm. You just need to go into the Python libraries that are in this app and wrap them yourself. A tutorial for that will be coming in the future. Brief moment about some of the drop-downs that I skipped over before. In scheduled jobs, we will actually be able to pull up all of the scheduled training commands that you've set via your assistant. That was the green button again under, say, predict numeric fields, this green button next to fit model, which allows me to schedule a fit. If I choose to schedule a fit, that fit will then show up under scheduled jobs, right here, scheduled training. The alerts, if I choose to set an alert through that interactive assistant, I'll actually be able to see those alerts here listed. So, that's the machine learning toolkit here. So that's the machine learning toolkit. Thank you for your time. In summary, the machine learning toolkit allows the user to sort of customize machine learning in their SPL search. The showcase is organized around those modeling assistants, so we have plenty of them here and a lot of pre-populated stories. Please take a look. Thank you, and happy mathematical modeling.